Hello, this is Dr. Stephen Greer, and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Greer. And I'd like to thank the folks at the World Puja Network for hosting us every 2 weeks here. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of catch people up on what's happening with the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, CSETI, and the Disclosure Project.org, as well as the Orion Project.org. And today we have a really wonderful guest on the show, Trudy Guyker. And Trudy has been a member of our senior contact team and involved with the work of CSETI, being out under the stars, making contact with us for over 15 years, since 1995, in fact. And I have to say that Trudy is one of the people, when we're out under the stars, I rely on most for the remote viewing and the spiritual connection in higher consciousness that we strive for, and the insight into what's going on behind the scenes, as it were, behind just what's seen in space with craft flying around and what have you. Trudy has been really a very close friend, and I think of her as my sort of a spiritual twin sister. So, and she lives in the Phoenix area of Arizona, and I'm very, very pleased to welcome Trudy to the show. Thank you, Trudy.
Well, thank you, Steve, very much for your kind words.
Well, part of what I want to do in this hour that we have is to talk about the sorts of experiences that we've had over the years, and it goes back many years. Those of you who, if you go to disclosureproject.org, there's a book that came out a little over a year ago called Kontakts, Countdown to Transformation, and it has a DVD that comes with it that has the images of the sightings and the craft and the tones and all the experiences we've had out under the stars together as a team, and it actually goes all the way back to 1992. And but one of the things, accounts that are in that book that we shared together when we were creating it was a trip that we took down to Mexico in the 1990s. And as I set the stage, beginning in, I believe it was 1993, Sherry Adamak and I and others would go down to Mexico near this large volcano. And there is a volcano called Popo, for short, outside Mexico City. It's the fourth largest volcano in the world. And there had been a lot of reports of a very large craft, a triangular craft, as well as discs seen there. And as many of you may know, you may have seen videotape of these objects. In fact, when we first went there, the first year, is when we had this about 800 to 900 foot on each side triangular ship, fully materialized, that came from the direction of the volcano, and it came right over us, and I signaled to it with a high-powered light, and it turned on its axis and came right over at us and then signaled back, and it was only a couple hundred feet in the air, and this would have been the size of about 3 football fields, silently floating. And that was in 1993, and what we have had happen since other trips has been sort of an escalation of contact in that area. And when we first went there, we went to this little town of Atlixco, which is on the far side of the volcano from Mexico City in a very remote area, and not too far from the town of Pueblo. And it turned out that the police chief and virtually 90% of the town had seen these objects just floating right over their heads and flying around. So it was a very not uncommon, I should say, thing to see. In fact, there was a monastery there where the priest one night had been out and saw these discs fly right over the monastery of this little town of Atlixco. And when I went there and I gave a talk, there was a Kiwanis club, of all things, in this town, and they actually gave me, somewhere in my archives, I have a little poster, banner, a felt banner, like they would have at these sort of civic organizations, with a picture of the volcano and the name and logo for the Kiwanis Club for Atlixco, and there's the picture of the volcano with a UFO hovering right beside it, because everyone in this civic organization had seen them. And so this is sort of setting the stage of this area in Mexico where so many things were being seen at that time. And so a few years later, we went down, I believe it was Bob Haregrove and you, Trudy, and myself, and there may have been some others, and Sherry, and we went to this same area where we'd gone originally in 93. I think this year it must have been in 96 or something.
97.
96 or 97, yes, 97. And it was very interesting because we had a series of experiences that happened. I remember one evening, unfortunately there had been a lot of forest fires in the area that year, and some of the area had been very smoky and what have you, but we were in this one particular area and looking over at a hillside, often not very far away actually, and we saw this set of triangular lights. And to look at them, you would have thought that they were 3 street lights or lights on houses or something. And they were there for a very, very long time. And as it turned out, when we talked to the people in the area the next day, it was an area where there was no electrification, lights of any kind. And it was the same triangular craft that was just hovering there watching us during an event that I want to share and set the stage for. Now, at that time, back in those days, and again, this is going back 13 years or more, we had these high-powered lights that we would shine to show the ETs our location. Now we use these really bright green lasers to vector ET craft into where we are, and these protocols are described in this book I just referred to, Contact, Countdown to Transformation. And as I mentioned, you can get that at disclosureproject.org. But at that time, we were using these very bright lights, and the police in the area, many of the police were, on previous trips, we had been robbed by police. On one trip, I was robbed, I think, 3 nights out of the 5 we were out. And it's well known that a lot of the police there are involved in that kind of activity. And this particular night, we were out on this site near some old colonial ruins, or maybe pre-colonial ruins, that were near this little town of Metepec. And it was right between Metepec and Atlimayaya, which is the last little village you would get to before you'd have to go on a trail to hike up the volcano. And we were sitting there meditating and doing what we do in our protocols, remote viewing space, contacting the ETs, inviting them to come. And suddenly we saw these policemen coming in, pushing a Volkswagen police car with their rifles cocked and drawn, and coming in very stealthily onto us. Now, whether they thought that we were there trying to signal a drug drop or something, or they were just there to try to harass us and rob us, who knows? Anything is possible. But at that point, we had this whole series of things happen that were, and this is the same night that we had this triangular ship that we were seeing that we thought might have been just lights off in the distance. It turned out weren't. And I think, at this point, I of course realized that we were in real trouble. And I thought, I actually had a remote view that we could be shot by these folks out in this remote area, robbed and shot. And so, I became very concerned. And so I did a sort of a meditation really quickly in the midst of all this, and a prayer calling on the Godhead to protect us and to send protection to us. And that's what I was doing while assessing the situation with these people who came in. And, of course, they came in and started rummaging around in our stuff and checking our binoculars and looking around. And I spoke very little Spanish, but tried to explain a little bit about los ovnis, which is the Spanish word for UFOs, and that we were contacting them and what have you. And what was amazing about this is that they came in a very hostile stance and very aggressive, with the drums cocked and drawn. Rifles, multiple of them. And then they were, after a few minutes of checking things out, they kind of went into an altered state where some spirit or consciousness overtook them. And they sat down, went to their police car and got a guitar out, and they didn't leave. They sat right there and started playing the guitar and singing music together like they were just boys around a campfire. It was the strangest thing you'd ever seen in your life. And I turned to my team and I said, look, with one seamless movement, gather up all our stuff and get in the car, and we're going back to our hotel, which was in a secure facility. That was a gated facility. And that's what we did. And I think, I drove like a Secret Service agency getting the president out of a jackpot. And we left and got out of that situation. But you could feel that there was this not only extraterrestrial energy around us, but angelic and divine energy around us. And then things got very interesting in what happened that night later in our dream state. So Trudy, I would like for you to share what your perspective of this was and what you experienced.
Okay. It was as Stephen said, it was very intense. And so we were sitting on the ground when these police came in with their cocked rifles, and dark as could be in the middle of nowhere, and it obviously was dangerous. It was a very scary scene. But during the whole event, something strange was happening to me. I was not afraid, and I was aware of the danger, but there was something inside of me that was not afraid. And during the time, I kept saying, I put us all in your hands, Lord, to keep us safe from harm and injury. And the police did not hurt me. They did nothing that was, inappropriate. But they came and they walked around us, and they were checking us out. There were two policemen, older policemen, that were behind us, checking out the bushes and things. And as Steve said, it was when the opportunity came, we left very quickly and efficiently, and went back to our hotel. Well, that night, after we finally were able to settle down, and I was falling asleep, all of a sudden, I came out of my body, and I was at the site, our field site there. And I was up above and behind the group, right, but I could see all of us there. And I saw me. And what happened is that I was being shown what was happening in during the real time, what was happening behind the scenes, as Steve was saying. And what it was, I saw angels. They had no wings, but there was an angel behind and above each of the policemen. And they had their arms out, stretched out toward these people. And then it was as if these people were standing on a balcony. And what I saw, when I say these people, I saw about 15 feet above us and behind the angels, I saw a celestial being. I saw two humanoid ETs dressed in like jumpsuits, and there was a smaller ET to their right, and he must have been about 3 feet tall, very pleasantly. He was definitely ET. And they were watching. They were watching us.